Let's go to 1 Samuel 33:4. When David and his men saw the ruins and realized what had happened to their families, they wept until they could weep no more. This past weekend, we really dove deep into this topic of enough to make a grown man cry. Enough to make a grown man cry. I mean this, man, and this is I say this with no ambiguity. I need a break. I need a break. I don't know about y'all, but lately I feel overwhelmed with images that are draining. I'm so tired of seeing black brothers killed in the streets. The protesting, the weight of trying to support protesters, trying to be there for my community, trying to pastor people through a pandemic. It's enough to make a grown man cry. Even today, watching the funeral of that beautiful brother from Atlanta, Georgia, and to see another mother have to be strong. Another mother have to be strong. That in itself is enough to make a grown man cry. I want to jump deep into this, and let's just kick this off real on a practical, plain level right here. Let's deal with the mythical myth that men don't cry. Men don't cry. Men don't cry. I want to go deep. Let's go here. Let's talk about some stuff that made you cry. I want to put you on the spot. Who want to go first? Some stuff that really peaked at your heart and kind of pulled some emotion out of you.
There's been a lot of moments. One in particular for me, and I saw a lot of it even in the text as you were preaching this past Sunday, but not being able to provide for my family when I was homeless. That was, watching my father. I was raised by my father, so my story's a little different than I know a lot of men's, but, watching how he provided and how he was a pastor and how he was there. And for me as his son, to not be able to feed my family, to be homeless, the reason we couldn't go to his house is because I was too ashamed because I knew he had raised me to be a better provider. So definitely being homeless and not being there for my family was something that made me cry.
Somebody jump in there. Somebody else. Anybody want to talk?
I think one of the things I'll say as well, I think feeling like you're falling short of God's expectation.
Wow.
In those moments where God has called you to be something and you haven't become it yet. Especially when you have other people around you who seem to be living in what God has called them to. Going through those moments, I think, were one of the things that pulled out the most emotion in me.
I'll never forget I'll never forget. You guys know my testimony. My oldest son is not by lady. He lives with me. I love him with all my heart. He's probably watching right now. Xander took him to football practice this morning. I'll never forget when he was a baby, his mom called me and said, Xander just used the pot. Man, I pulled over on the side of the road like a grown man. I'm bawling, crying, because I had to come to the grips with that reality that my son wasn't with me. And I think so many times as men, and I want to be patriarchal, and women, so many times as men and women, but more in a specific sense with men, people tend to think that we don't have emotions. Now let me talk about how ambivalent I am, because the moment you come out the womb, and you start crying, they say what? Be tough. Be tough. So from 0 to 18, you tell me to be tough. Then from the moment I turn 19 and want to get married, you tell me to be emotional. In our text today, we see some real men shed some tears. Verse 4 says they wept until they could weep no more. In our narrative tonight, we see one of the most emotional stories regarding men and fathers in the entire Bible. To give you some context so you can respect the contents, David and his men are preparing for battle. They leave to go to battle. David had forsaken his promised land and sought refuge among the unbelieving worldly Philistines for over a year now. They had been living among the Philistines, so much so that he even joined the armed forces and was poised to fight and strike against Israel. I said this weekend, I want to say it again. The first thing we see in the text that literally leaps out of the text is a man on the run. And I want to talk about that because whether we like it or not, in our communities, there are so many men on the run. Somebody jump in on there. What does it mean to be on the run?
Well, for me, Pastor, I think you find yourself in this space almost like Jonah when you're running away from responsibility. Many times when I find myself running, I'm running from something that God told me to do that I really would prefer not to. And I think for many men, being uncomfortable, maybe feeling unprepared. I thank God for a wonderful relationship that I have with my father now, but for many years we didn't have that relationship. And so becoming a father myself, I initially felt unprepared. And so if you're not careful, you'll run from that.
Man, I'll never forget the first time I held Mike at home now. I got Mike at home, and this is crazy. I'm sitting there looking at him, and my mom goes home. Lady goes to the restroom. I'm sitting in the den by myself, holding Mike, and this overwhelming sense of, bro, this on me. This on me. And I'm just looking at him trying to make sure he's still breathing. That was enough to make me run. We look at this particular text. Why? I'm going to talk to my scholars in the room. Why is David on the run? Somebody jump in there.
So at this point, David is on the run because he's been anointed king at this point, and he has actually come into the service of Saul. He's moved into the palace. He's actually a part of his armed forces. And Saul knew who David was. Back in 1 Samuel 15, Saul originally went to war against the Amalekites. And when he fought them, God told him to destroy them utterly, and they did not. And that was when God's anointing lifted off of him.
Let's stop. So I want you to catch this. David is living with the who?
With the king.
He's living with the king, but in this particular text, he's with the who?
He's with the Philistines.
He's with the Philistines. They are about to go fight who?
The Israelites.
The Amalekites. No, they're the Israelites.
They're gonna go fight.
God told Saul to do what to the Amalekites?
Destroy the Amalekites.
Destroy the Amalekites. How?
He told him to destroy them completely.
To wipe them off the face of the earth. And because he did not do what God called him to do, what happened?
They came back and attacked David.
They came back and attacked David, but more importantly, the glory
Departed.
lifted off of him. And I want to pause here and parenthetically digress that many of you right now, we have to get back in God's presence, because when we don't follow God's orders and his instructions, we risk not only losing the fight, but losing the glory. That's critical. He is on the run. He is on the run. And jump in there, Pastor Henry. He's on the run.
I think another thing that I love about the book of 1 Samuel is that it's a book of choices. Is that in this book, we see so many dichotomies, so many comparisons between what happens when you do it God's way versus when you do it your own way. And so even when we look at David, you talk about a man on the run. One of the things that David also shows us is that there are some conflicts that just seem to find gifted people.
Say that
Even
again.
if you don't ask for them, if you didn't do anything for them, there are some conflicts that just find gifted people. And a lot of times it's not about who you are, it's about what you're carrying. And so here is David, he is the king. And so he just seems to constantly find himself in conflict. Now, some of them he has caused with his choices, but some of them have found him, like the one with Saul, simply because he was called.
And here's what's crazy. David was on the run because Saul recognized him as his successor, and he possessed a tormenting spirit. Can you put this in your notes you're watching right now? Be careful when you're around toxic people, because David, yet he's not done anything to Saul, but Saul, because he possessed a tormenting spirit, caused him to lash out at David. I heard Dr. Darius Daniels say this and it messed me up. He said, be careful when you kill Goliath because you trigger Saul. I don't think you heard what I just said. Be careful when you kill Goliath because you trigger Saul. I'm going to say this and I pray 3 of y'all can receive this. I used to sit at home certain days saying, why so-and-so don't like me? And what did I do to them? You killed something. Yeah. See, sometimes it's not about what you did to them personally, it's what you triggered unintentionally. See, sometimes while you're busy over here saying I did it, you don't realize who watched it saying, if they could take that down, what could they do to me? So that's critical. I love what you said. Sometimes you attract issues because of your gift. That's critical. And I need you to catch this. 1 Samuel 30:1. 3 days later, when David and his men arrived home to their hometown Ziklag, they found that the Amalekites had made their raid on the Negev and Ziklag, and they had crushed Ziklag and burned it to the ground. Not only do we see a man on the run, but number 2, we see a man out of position. The text says, while the men were missing, the enemy raided the city. Now, here's what's critical. Why are they missing? If you look at this with an untrained eye, you're going to say, Pastor Mike, they were going to battle. That's what men are supposed to do. No, the problem is they're going to a battle that they should have never been in the first place. Somebody jump in on that.
All right,
come on.
Because this gets me excited. Because here's what's really happening. David is having a feud with Saul.
Yeah.
So he's going to war with Israel. I'm going to say that again.
Say it again.
David is having a feud with Saul, so he goes to war against Israel.
Stop. So he's having a feud with Saul.
Yes.
Going to war with Israel.
That's it.
He finna go fight.
Yes.
The very people
that he called to lead.
He called to lead.
Yes.
Jump in there. Come on now.
So I'm looking at this and I'm tripping because so often, to put this in our context, we can get put it in a church context. We can have an alt with the pastor and give up on the whole church, not realizing that we getting ready to go fight the very thing that God has called to save us.
So is it critical? Is it possible that when people come to church and an usher rub them the wrong way, that they in turn start fighting the very people that God called them to lead, but they're too busy being on the run in their feelings? That's critical, isn't it? We see a man out of position. And this is so critical because as the head of our households, and I don't want to be patriarchal, but this is Father's Day weekend part 2. As the head of our households, I'm going to say this, there's just certain things that can't happen when I'm in the house. Somebody jumping. I mean, there's just certain things that can't happen when I'm in the house.
You know, and I noticed that, you know, even sometimes in our calling and our purpose, it calls us sometimes by the house. I know when I come home, it's certain things. Raquel may have been telling Jace, don't do that. He liked to write on the TV with these magical markers. I'm like, Jace, don't do that. And it's done. She could say it 10 times, but when Daddy said, when I'm in the house, when I'm in position, it's just a difference when I say it. And I think sometimes pressure also calls us to be out of position. Pressure also calls us to be on the run. Because I know, for instance, in my own life, man, one of the most absent times of my life, in my children's life, is because I was dealing with so much pressure that I just didn't feel like I had the time to deal with them at that same time as well. So it's just something about a father being there just makes a difference.
That's true.
Even growing up, it was always, whenever I wanted to do something, it was always go ask your daddy, go ask your daddy, and go ask your daddy. Even though I knew I was my daddy's baby, I was the only girl, so anything I asked for was a yes, but it was always, well, go ask your daddy, or wait till your daddy get home and tell your daddy what you did. And that just, to this day, and I think I can share this, going through it with Pastor Mike, looking at him as my spiritual father, it's one thing to disappoint Pastor Hollis, but to think that I disappointed Pastor Mike, for him to say he don't want to talk to me.
Yeah, and because when a man's out of position, I want to talk about this because culturally, the more I begin to research who I am, I don't want to say your pastor is becoming woke. Because I think woke carries so many connotations. I was never asleep. I'm just diving deeper into my cultural and into my heritage. And the more I begin to research, and we was looking at this, Hollis, we was looking at how culturally when they had slaves, the first thing they would do was break the strongest male. They would take these men and treat them as studs and just breed men and rip us out of our homes. And as a consequence, a lot of men today are still running around living like studs. Culturally, they would take the male, they would try to breed the strongest male with the best woman, and they were trying to breed children. They would sell you off. So now families are divided, which is why now it feels natural to some men to just get some and leave. Because culturally, for years, that's how they treated us. And so systemically, this is why on Father's Day, you didn't see me run a lot of stats. Like 36% of children without a father in the home would be 45% without a father. I didn't do that because a lot of those stats are secretly used by conservatives to push this agenda that racism hasn't had an impact on the African American family. Did you hear what I just said right there? So what am I trying to realize? If we're not careful, the culture is trying to push the man out of position. I love every strong sister watching me right now. I want you to be strong. I want you to be anointed. But with the truth of the matter is, every person watching this stream has been positively or negatively impacted by some man. And it is our responsibility now to do our best in our local context to make sure the man is in position. Don't protest if you're not going to visit your children. Did you catch that? Don't try to be the best #1 artist in the country if you're not going to raise your kids. No, I'm telling us now that my greatest assignment is not standing before people right now on this live. My greatest assignment is being a father. It's being a father. Ministry starts at home. The text says while they were missing, some stuff got took. Look at this, and I need you to catch this. Why? Because we cannot stress again the criticality of our presence. We cannot stress again the criticality of our presence. Not only do I see a man on the run, not only do I see a man out of position, but look at the third thing I see. I see a man under pressure. Because look at this, it says, and they took captive the women and all who were there, both small and great, without killing anyone, and carried them off and went their way. When David and his men came to the city, behold, it was burned with fire. Their wives and their sons sons and their daughters were taken captive. Then David and the people who were left, watch this, lifted their voices and began to weep. What do we see when a man is out of position? His house gets raided. Somebody jump in there, man. Let's talk about that.
I think that's good because even if we go all the way back to the book of Genesis and you look at Adam and Eve in the garden, the Bible says that the enemy was able, in the form of a serpent, to encounter Eve absent of her husband.
That's good.
So
That's
much
good.
so that when God comes walking through the garden, he says, Adam,
where are you?
Where are you?
Jesus.
And so we always see where the enemy is able to have a power absent a man that he wouldn't have had we been present. The fall of man can be tied to the fact that when a man was supposed to be present, he wasn't.
Left her uncovered.
Let's talk about this. I want to take a different angle, and I think we'll have some fun with this, because let's talk about the potential for a man to be physically present yet morally absent. Because here's one of the things that I think David wrestled with. David wrestles with the fact that his home has been raided when just 3 chapters earlier he was the raider. And so now what David is dealing with is he's dealing with the fact that someone has done to him what he has done to others. And so now he's wrestling. If I could be honest, as a father to 4 girls, one of my biggest fears is that my daughters will encounter who I used to be.
Ooh.
And so one of the things that David is going up against is that now he's been raided and he's happy because it says that the bodies weren't there, that they weren't killed. But 1 Samuel 27 shows us that when David raided, he killed everything. And so now here he is having to deal with the reality that now he's come up against somebody who is doing to him what he's done to others.
I want to deal with this. Let's talk about this. The criticality of decisions.
Yes.
That's critical because David makes a decision to go fight. Nowhere in the text do the men make the decision because they're loyal to a brother who is not in purpose. They lose something. That's critical. I want to stress to somebody watching right now, all of us can't make bad decisions. If I make a bad decision, it impacts too many people. We got to understand, and I pray you can receive this, that whenever we get out of position, what we tend to lose is not just on us. That's critical, ain't it? It's not just on us. My wife, every time the boys start going left, the first thing she say is, you need to go and hurry up and get home. Because again, she just understands that when daddy is in position, when a man is in position, and this sermon is not a slight to any female, but all of us can attest, successful, rich, poor, everybody want their daddy. Just want your daddy to say they proud of you. My dad called me today and literally said, I answered the phone and said, hello. He said, what's up, hero? He said, boy, I'm just so proud of you, man. Riding down the street, your song come on the radio. Somebody called me about a speech you made. I'm just like, man, this boy. And at 36, I still feel 15. Hang up the phone. You heard my daddy just say it right. Because it's something, Jesus performs no miracles until his father affirms him. I want to submit to somebody right now. Let's talk about David's bio. He is under pressure. Let's just talk about this a little bit. Number one, and y'all dive in. I'm going to give you a scenario. You jump in it. Pressure number one. His daddy and his brothers mistreated him. The prophet shows up to the house and says, the king is in your house. What do you do when the people around you don't see what's in you? Somebody jump in on that.
It's David was basically overlooked. You know, he asked about sons, and of course the sons came in. But what I love about that, you know, Pastor, and what God really used to bless me was that the oil didn't stop flowing until David showed up. And it was about, okay, somebody else, you may not be in that position yet, somebody else may be there, but don't worry because the oil won't stop flowing until you show up. It doesn't matter how many times you're overlooked or picked, you know, people are picked before you. God, if the calling is on your life, if the anointing is on your life. I remember in my career earlier, man, I was a non-singer. I was a Kurt Franklin wannabe. They had every reason why I would not be successful. But sitting here today at Rock City, I have more #1 songs than any singer, any amazing person, because what God has for you, it is for you. It is for you.
And what's critical is, look, pressure. His daddy and his brothers mistreated him. His mentor, Saul, was trying to kill him. That's a word to an entrepreneur, because so many of us want mentors and don't even realize mentors can't handle your success. One of the things I have to kill in me daily is pride. You know, I'm surrounded, as you watch me right now, I'm just surrounded by some geniuses. This will soon be Dr. Leslie, and everybody knows Pastor Hollins and how gifted he is. Pastor Henry probably gonna have a PhD one day. James Fortune, he just slyway gave us a little slyway testimony with a slyway shade. You know, God, a humble brag. You know, God bless you. Can't even sing, but more number ones than everybody in the country. God bless you. No, but you got to know his heart to know how sincere he is about that. And one thing I have to always say is, God, I know you called me to kill thousands. One of them may kill tens of thousands. Don't throw a spear. When you're comfortable in your assignment, from my soul, I want Pastor Hollis's church to be better than mine. From my soul, I want each and one of you to accomplish everything you have. I started quarantine out in our first staff meeting, asking each and every one of you, what are you trying to accomplish? What are you trying to work on? Pastor Henry loves simple systems. He loves giving you 10 steps to this and 21 steps to this and 5 steps to this and practical ways to make it through life. I want him to be the African-American version of Nelsie Searcy. I want him to be the simple systems guy that they call him in from across the country to do just that. James Fortune got an album dropping this weekend. I want that joint to be #1 across all platforms so we can say, God, you did it again. Do you hear what I'm saying? I can't wait to get the phone call from Pastor Hollis. You're not going to believe this, Dad. They just called me to speak at so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. It's 36,000 people there. I'm not going to be on the phone saying stuff like, well, you know, they should have called me for that. You ain't even got nothing to say yet. No, they should have called me for that. No, because I realized the Bible says, if I be lifted up. In other words, he was giving us a principle that if you stop trying to be seen, stop trying to be the draw and just be a good lifter, that's when God will bless you. So his daddy and his brothers are mistreating him. His mentor trying to kill him. He's living his life on the run. He's living amongst people who don't even like him. His city has been burned to the ground. Now his family is gone. I came to preach to somebody who has so much stuff going on in your life right now. Truth be told, you got a right to have a breakdown. Did you catch what I just said right there? Because so many times, and this is what I don't want to be. Oh, thank you, Jesus. Here's what I don't want to be. I don't want to preach so much hope that we breeze past how they feel. I think we can do that sometimes in church. Sometimes in church we can tell you be strong, when sometimes we need to say you got a right to be weak. Y'all tell you what, just lay on the floor and cry for a day. Let that out. The Bible says right there, it's right there in verse 4, then David and the people who were with him lifted their voices and wept until there was no strength in them to weep. What do you do when you ain't got no tears left? I want to talk about this, and I want to push each one of you. I'm going to push this side. I'm going to push this side, okay? This side, I want y'all to converse amongst each other. You deal with heart attacks. This side deal with strokes. We're going to do it again. You got heart attacks. Y'all work together. You got strokes. Because I want to submit to somebody watching me tonight that there are 2 people on this stream tonight. Some of you have been through so many things in your life. You're dealing with spiritual heart attacks. The other half is having spiritual strokes. Now, what's the difference? You feel a heart attack. A stroke happens and you don't know what happened. All right, so I'm going to deal with this. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Rock, paper, scissors right here. We're going to go to it. See who go first. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. All right, it's on you. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Strokes
typically happen when there's a blockage of some type. And so something that's supposed to flow regularly and smoothly is now your progress is impeded because you ran into something.
Did you hear what he just said? Do you hear what he just said? He said a stroke is a blockage. He just pulled that one out. A stroke is a blockage. So here it is. Our relationship is supposed to flow, but something caused a blockage. Now I don't feel. What went numb because of a blockage you didn't see being formed? Do you see this? What if David would have said, you know what? I don't even need this stuff. Y'all want to kill me, want to talk about me? I'm losing my family too. Part of the problem with being gifted is that you are so great at what you do that people forget you going through the same thing they going through. I had somebody tell me, Pastor Mike, I need you to do so-and-so, so-and-so. I said, hey, I'm in a pandemic too. I'm worried about my kids catching it too. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to pay people too. I'm trying to figure out where my mind is experience too. The only problem is don't ever be so caught up in your pain that you don't think nobody else is going through pain. And I came to submit to somebody watching me right now, just because you have days when you can't stop crying and hurting, it doesn't mean you're weak, it means you're human. Somebody in the comments just type, I'm human. That's why I can shout on Sunday and might cuss you out on Thursday. I'm human, which is why I got advice for you, but sometimes don't know what to say to me. I'm human, which is why I said I'm done with them, but 2 months later be right back with them, because the good I would do, I do if not, but the bad I find myself doing. I am human, which is why I said I wouldn't smoke again, but when life got hard, because I wasn't spiritually grounded and didn't have disciplines, I ran back to stuff that pleases flesh rather than stuff that keeps my spirit strong, because I am human. Stop beating yourself up because you are having human moments. The problem is when we have human cycles. Blockage. Let's talk. Now, you're not off the hook, Leslie. Stroke. He said it's a blockage. What else do you see with a stroke?
So typically a stroke is hidden. You have certain signs that appear outwardly, but you don't know it's happening until after it's happened.
Which is why they ask you to start doing things. What are some of the tests they do? Quick tests to see if you're having a stroke.
It's a smile.
Look, oh my God. Come here. Say it again. So one of the tests is when they want to know if you're having a stroke, one of the quick tests they do is what? They tell you to smile. I want to submit that somebody who's watching me tonight, one of the greatest signs that you're dealing with a spiritual or an emotional stroke is that you don't have the ability to smile during pain. You don't have the joy that you used to be able to pull on. Let's talk about heart attacks. We're over here now. Heart attacks. Let's go.
One of the number one killers of heart attack is congenital heart failure, which means it happens over time, over generations, things that have been building up, that it didn't start with me. It didn't start with you, but it's been generational. And if you look at what David went through, every stage was a buildup, was building up to where we led to.
So one of the signs that you can see that David is suffering a heart attack is that we colonize with people who share our condition. And so David in 1 Samuel 22, we discover that he is surrounded by other men who are discontented. Yeah. So when something goes wrong, that contentment now turns towards him because he's surrounded by people who all are sharing the same heart issues because they're disregarded, they're in debt, they're thrown away. They're all people who have been looked over and pushed away. And because they've been pushed away, now here they come. When they get to a situation like this, the first thing they do is turn on each other.
This is why, for everybody who's watching me right now, for everybody who can't figure out why it is for the first time in a long time, there are blacks, whites, Latinos, Koreans, and everyone standing in lines protesting, is because you are witnessing the colonizations of people who have the same pain. Their heart has been pulled on in a way like never before. Pastor James said that beautifully. He said it's happening over time. So the stroke, boom, it just hits you. The heart attack can be congenital, which means it's in your bloodline, which is why when you go to hospital, the first thing they say, you ever had somebody in your family? Generational. Generational. Now, who attacked? Let's go back to the text. Who attacked their families? What's the name of the group that attacked their families?
The Amalekites.
The Amalekites. Can I ask you a question? When Moses is on the hill and he got his hands raised, Joshua is in the valley fighting who?
The Amalekites.
So what do we see? We see an ancient enemy. Congenitive.
Yeah.
So didn't you say earlier somebody was supposed to wipe the Amalekites out?
In 1 Samuel 15, just 15 chapters before this, God told Saul to wipe them out.
Stop. So Moses beat him, but he didn't wipe them out.
Yeah.
Saul beat him.
He killed the people, but he kept the king alive.
Girl, say that again.
He killed the people, but he kept the king alive.
Which means, so for all of my preachers watching, this is how we prepare sermons, okay? So we got to take what she say and make it preachable, make it applicable. So historically, he killed the people,
right,
but he kept the king, which means what?
He kept the head alive. And everybody knows if you're going to kill a snake, you got to get rid of the head.
You got to get rid of it. Or?
He also didn't kill the spirit that God was trying to eradicate.
It wasn't just about wiping them out. It was doing away with the spirit of who they were. This is why it's so hard for certain organizations to grow, because people leave, but their spirit don't. This is why sometimes the Holy Spirit spoke to me the other day. Holy Spirit spoke to me the other day. I'm preaching if y'all have received that. Why y'all sleeping on me now? Y'all be having y'all little intellectual stuff. Give me some stuff too. Clap for me. I'm over here giving y'all some stuff. Clap for me. Hear me now, because you can get rid of folk, but you'll get rid of their spirit, which is why you break up with people and end up with the same type person. Because you broke up with that person, but you never disconnected from that spirit. I come against the spirit of a thing, which is why, look at me, which is why we marched in the 60s and got the ability to vote, which is why we marched in the 60s and got the ability to vote, which is why King died, but now at least segregation was ruined. Now we can go to whatever school we want to, we can eat at every restaurant we want to, but the problem is we got rid of the legislation, but we didn't kill the spirit. And because we didn't kill the spirit, although it's been dormant, just because it's dormant don't mean it's dead. And the problem with America is we keep having flare-ups. It is stuff that is dormant that we think is over. So because you live in a vanilla suburb, because you got an S550, because you're making 6 figures a year, because your family got a 401k and y'all can go to Florida twice a year, you actually think you've become something when you don't realize who cares if you come out if you don't kill the spirit. I need 100 folk watching me right now to say, as for me and my family, I'm killing the spirit off my family. I destroyed the spirit of poverty. I destroyed the spirit of divorce. I destroyed the spirit of lust. Anything in my bloodline that is not like God, I cancel it right. Y'all gonna make me have church today. I gotta kill the spirit. Give somebody an air high five and say, you got to kill the spirit. You got to kill the spirit. That stuff that happened in Birmingham 50 years ago, we got past it, but the spirit is still here. The spirit is still here. So right now in the name of Jesus, which is why I don't think it's coincidence that the same Woolworth, a name Woolworth that tried to kill our granddaddy, out of nowhere this past week, it ain't the same company, but the same name popped up with more racism. It's because you can do away with the entity, but if you don't address the spirit, say it again, say it in the mic.
Wrestle not
We
against flesh
wrestle
and blood.
not against flesh and blood. I don't care if Starbucks gonna give us $2 million. Are we gonna address the spirit? I don't care if Netflix cutting $60 million checks. Are we gonna address the spirit? As a people, we gotta stop being so satisfied with the headlines and these handouts. This is how I feel right now. Black Lives Matter. Well, here's a section on Netflix. Thank you. But justice. Hey, God bless you. Everybody can eat free. Hey, God bless you. We want justice. Hey. Here, we want to put the blackout on our social media page. Who cares if you're giving us public displays of affection if you're not faithful when we get home?
That's good. That's good, Pastor.
Don't just tell me. Thank you, that beautiful prophet from Canada. You're going to have to do more than just say it. That's critical. Generationally, he didn't destroy some stuff. As a father, there are 3 fathers on this stage right now. We're not being patriarchal, but it is Father's Day. So 3 fathers on this stage, 4 fathers right now. It's some stuff I got to kill. It's some stuff I got to kill. It's some stuff I got to kill, James. I love my son with all my heart. I had a child out of wedlock. If I don't deal with that lust in me, I don't know how it's gonna come out in my babies. I got to kill that. They handsome, they athletes. I gotta kill, it's some stuff. And the problem with us, we are never real about the stuff we gotta kill. Come on.
Oh, that's so good, because what I discovered as I became an adult, a lot of my issues and struggles, my dad told me later that he struggled with, but he never talked to me about them when I was young. So now I'm watching my son. I'm seeing some of the stuff he like. I say, yeah, I already see it. I'm seeing some of the pictures. I'm seeing some of the stuff he's doing. But it's like I have real hard conversations with my sons, and my dad didn't do that, and I don't judge him for it. It was just different then. But I think now it's time for us to be more transparent. We talked about it a few weeks ago. The transparency is what's going to produce transformation.
Transparency. We got to stop being silent about stuff that's killing us generationally. You hear me? Lust can kill. Here's the danger. Can I play devil's advocate? Yes, sir. All right, so if you're a whore, or if you're a player, or if you like sleeping around, whatever you want to call it, okay? That's what you do. Yeah. The root of it is what? Lust. Can I ask you a question? So it means if I pass lust on to my child, I can't determine what he gonna lust for. I can't determine the fruit. I can only build on the root. Y'all don't hear what I just said. So what's another spirit we deal with? What's some stuff we got to kill as men? Let's be honest tonight.
For me, one thing is the spirit of poverty. And I think so many times poverty is tied to what we do or do not have in our bank account, when truth be told, Pastor, it's so much deeper than that. I remember you were up preaching one time and you kind of juxtaposed the scarcity mindset with a surplus mindset.
Yes.
And I wrestled with that for weeks, because I realized I've been able in some seasons to accumulate a certain amount of stuff, only to fall victim to the same decisions. And ultimately, poverty doesn't have anything to do with your deposits. It's about your decisions. And that's a spirit for me that it's got to die. It's got to die in my family.
I think we have to overcome the lack of spiritual authority for men. And here's one of the reasons I say that is because I think as men, we all have stories for how we became who we are. But at some point, we've got to come to the realization that we cannot change our past, but we can change our futures. I have heard too many men say as an excuse for who they are, that's how I was raised. You don't know what I went through. But we can never go back and change what we went through, but we can change what we're going to go through in the future. And I think if as men, if we don't take spiritual authority over our families and learn the ability to not just try to lead our women physically, but learn to lead them spiritually, learn to lead our children spiritually, learn to raise them up in the fear and admonition of the Lord. One of the things that blessed my life this week is that we caught my daughter had wasted a whole bottle of olive oil. And when we went in there to go and find out what she was doing, we discovered that she said, oh, I was praying for my baby sister. And so she had wasted a whole bottle of oil, and we found my little baby daughter, my 1-year-old, she got oil all on her head because the 2-year-old in there trying to anoint her and pray for her. And so what I'm sitting there saying is that this is the kind of legacy we got to leave, is that our children will do what they see us do, and that goes both ways. That goes both positive and negative. And so we've got to pass on this idea of spiritual identity and authority.
And see, this is why my kids aren't going back to school in the fall, okay? They're not going back to school in the fall. I'm in the process of emptying my office out at home. I'm finna buy a couple tables. I'm gonna put a TV in there. There's gonna be learning stations. I am so grateful for this opportunity, because again, I'm gonna say this, I do not believe the world system was supposed to be the primary educator of my child. Did you catch what I just said, Leslie? I do not believe it. We're gonna have the church, I am. Now, I'm going to say this, and I pray my sisters who's watching don't say, well, Pastor Mike, you being patriarchal. No, I'm not. I am taking responsibility for those God has given me. I can't wait. Hear me when I can't wait. I'm already writing a curriculum out on how I'm going to juxtapose worldly things and godly things. Where I'm going to talk about the first week 1 at our school this summer, this fall. Week 1 is stewardship. What is that in the earthly realm? Responsibility. Then what's the assignment for it? Why, PMJ? Because taking spiritual authority ain't just whooping them. Let's talk, what does taking spiritual authority on a practical level mean?
Really what you said, Pastor Mike, that's the way it was. That was the difference in the 60s, is they were the primary teachers. And that's what it is. Taking spiritual authority is saying, I'm going to teach my children. I'm going to bring them up in the admonition of the Lord. That's something that we hear a lot during child dedication, is I'm going to raise them in the fear and admonition. Well, it's very clear that the world has no regard for God. However, as spiritual beings, that's our primary source. So we have to take the role and say, no, I'm going to educate my child in that.
So, and I love it. Our children are not just going to do what we tell them. They're going to mimic what they see us doing. You got me? Like my boys, they'll see me and say, get a room, Dad. I want them to see me just kind of rubbing up on Mama. I want them to see me. I love it. I will walk in the room in the middle of the night and just say, Father, in Jesus' name, Father. And they'll open their eyes and kind of roll over. I'm trying, because here it is again. Let's talk about this. What are some things we got to kill? Come on, let's talk. What's some more things we got to kill? That's men.
I think, and you talked about how do we take spiritual authority? I want to combine those two things. I think it's this idea of prayerlessness, and how we struggle to have spiritual authority because we're struggling to pray. We have to understand that if God sacrificed his son to die for us, then that would lead me to believe that he also wants to speak to us. Like if he loved me enough to sacrifice his only son for me, then he probably wants to have an intimate and interactive relationship with me. And so I think that it's impossible for us to have spiritual authority when we are not talking to the supreme or sovereign authority figure. And I think that's something that we've got to kill, that lack of prayer, especially amongst men, because what the devil is afraid of is a man that can pray. Yeah.
I think something too that's important for men to kill, and I know we're gonna deal with it this weekend and rock the house with Rockefellers, is that spirit of control and having to have control, having to be in control. And I think for me, I struggled because I always learned in church about, wives, submit to your husbands, and men were the leader. I grew up Baptist, so at one time women weren't even allowed in the pulpit. So I was always just without even knowing subconsciously, like, we in control, like we control, we make. And I think for me, when I went through some things in my life that many of you know about, I learned that my issue was it really wasn't so much anger, as that when I wasn't in control, I got out of control. I had to be in control. That control was like a drug. Control can be like it can be addicted to control. That whenever you're not in control, when you're in control, you're at peace, you're at ease. But I think that controlling spirit with a lot of men destroys families, destroys homes, and so many other areas in your life.
I want to submit to somebody. There's some stuff we got to kill. There's some stuff we got to kill, and I'm trying to mimic that as a father. I mean this, man. When I make mistakes, this morning I woke up and Xander has to be out of the house by 8 o'clock so he can be at practice. Practice starts at 8:45, but you can start getting there by 8:20. I want the coach to see that he's always on time, always where he needs to be. So at 8 o'clock, we always leaving out the door. To this morning, I sat there, it's 8:10. I'm just laying in the bed looking at him like, I wonder is he gonna get up and come in and say, Dad, I'm ready. I just sat there, so around 8:25, I said, Xander. He came running there. I said, hey, you weren't gonna tell me it's time to go? He said, I thought you knew. I said, no. I said, if you see ain't nobody moved, that's when you get up and you say, hey, Dad, I got to be here. Watch this. It's not my job to put water in your bucket. It's not my job to make sure you got your cleats. He left his mask today. It ain't my job to make sure you got your mask. I'm not doing none of that. You are of age now. So I'm having to understand, watch this, but as I'm driving, I heard my pastor say this and I want to share with you. He said, my son is a teenager, which means I'm going to fuss at him 12 times a day, which means I probably need to hug him 24 times. Because I don't only want to hear me coming down. He's going to be able to handle my critique because he lived for my compliments. Did you catch what I just said? So the whole car ride, I'm like, bro, you're going to kill him today. I said, his thigh was hurting a little bit. The whole car ride, I rubbed this thigh, Father, in Jesus' name. You feel it getting stronger? Oh, it's getting stronger today. I got the special powers now. I'm praying for him. You got me? I'm kissing him on the head. I'll walk up behind him and just love on him. I don't want him to feel like he's never felt loved. They carried off the women and children and everyone else without killing anyone. Warren W. Wiersbe said, perhaps the Lord permitted this raid on Ziklag to encourage David to get out of the enemy's territory and go back to Judah where he belonged. What if God allowed this to happen? Because sometimes rejection is our direction. That's critical, ain't it? I love what Dr. William Fluker said. He called it dangerous memories. Too many men have dangerous memories that just because you survived it, it's still living in you. Dangerous memories. We have to deal with the fact that so many brothers and so many sisters didn't grow up with a positive male figure in your life. So you're running from something and don't even realize in your process of running from it, you're becoming it. I don't think y'all hear me tonight, man. This is good. Let's go. We got to go because we'll sit here all night. Let's talk about this, man. Let's talk about this. Not only do we see a man on the run, not only do we see a man out of position, not only do we see a man under pressure, but we also see a man who understands there's power in his presence. Power in his presence. The men got together and said, we need to kill David. They were greatly distressed for the people that spoke of stoning him. This is critical. We followed you in the battle. We didn't agree with your decision. We followed you in the battle. Now our children gone. So they're meeting now trying to stone him. Every man for his sons and his daughters were grieved. Here it is. But David encouraged himself. Can I be honest with you? Why is it encouraging you is so easy, but encouraging me is so difficult? Can we talk about that? Somebody jump in there. We're gonna go.
I think one of the things that we see with David is that David experiences something he's experiencing really for the first time. And that is the fact that his decisions have an effect on other people.
Yeah.
For the first time, David has to see that what I'm doing will affect other people.
Yeah.
And so I think he shows us a great leadership principle that God often takes us through as gifted people, is that God gives us hills to conquer before he gives us mountains to climb.
That's good.
Is that sometimes God says to us, I'm giving you something that's a taste of what I'm giving you in the future. Because here comes David getting ready to lead an entire kingdom. And what God is trying to say to him is that, David, you can't just make choices based on what seems convenient to you, because other people got something to lose. When people decide to follow you, they're making a big decision. When people decide to support you, they're making a big decision. And so he says, David, I'm allowing you to have this moment so that you can see what it feels like to overcome this. So when you get to that, you know what to do.
And it's a different way. It's a different way. I never forget. You're seeing that now pastoring. You're seeing that now pastoring. When you're sitting in the 2 seat or the 3 seat or the 4 seat, sometimes you can say stuff like, why he playing with people? He just need to tell them like it is till you get in that seat. And now I used to always push on you, the pastor's heart. Now your heart bleed differently. God is showing David, hey, when you become king, don't run into stuff. It's not only going to cost you. I never forget, because I'm radical, I'm wild. I never get the time I did something that went viral in our city. And I was just joking on Facebook, and then it went viral. And I came into the conference room, and all y'all was looking at me. I never forget that day. Y'all had y'all little intervention. You remember that? And I walk into there, and I swallowed. I said, all right, come on, let's go. And I sat down, and I went around the room and let everybody say what they wanted to say. James, they giving it to me. Pastor, you got to come on now. We're going to follow you to the end of the world. But it's like, come on. Don't give the people the bullets to shoot you with. And they just talking and hear me. No, my problem is, what does this mean on your families? And what does it mean? And I'm sitting there, and for the first time, all I could say was, you're right. Because like David, I realized real quickly, my decisions hurt everybody. They hurt everybody. They have to be prayed over. They have to be thought out. I like this because look at what happens. Then he said to Abner the priest, watch this, bring me the ephod. Who wants to tell him what the ephod is?
So the ephod was the priestly garment. It literally had a stone in it for every tribe. And whenever you wanted to go inquire of the Lord and wanted an answer, you had to go and get the ephod.
It had a stone from every tribe.
Every tribe.
So this was like the infinity stone jacket.
Yes.
Every tribe. That's a great description.
That's a great description of it.
It is the infinity stone jacket. That's what you're telling me.
Yes.
So the ephod would sort of be like when the glory falls at our church.
Yes.
And I go put the jacket on.
Yes.
They don't even know what to call it at the Rock City. They go, oh, he put it on. He put it on. So he said, go get me my war clothes.
Yes.
It also contained the 2 sacred stones, the Urim and the Thummim. And these were 2 stones that we don't know how they worked, but somehow, whenever they were seeking an answer from God, there was some kind of reaction that the stones would give to let them know which direction God was calling them to go.
So he says, bring me the ephod. This is critical. So Abthar brought it. Then David asked the Lord, should I chase after the band of raiders? Now I want to talk about, and I got to go because I'm running out of time. 1,100 people on Facebook, over 500 on YouTube. This is crazy. I want you to see this right now, okay? Why is this important? If my wife and my children have been kidnapped, ain't no praying. Let's stop being spiritual for a second. Ain't neither one of y'all finna be in there telling some, Father God, shall I go get my wife? Well, some of y'all may have to pray about going to get your wife. I don't know who I'm preaching to right now, but if you go home tonight, be like, she gone. Oh man, she gone. Dang, she gone. Dang, but no, ain't no praying. This reveals his spiritual maturity in the midst of calamity. We don't find out what you made of when you win it. We find out what you made of when you in pain. The text says he prayed and asked God, should I chase after this band of raiders? Will I catch them? And the Lord told him, yes, go after them. You will surely recover everything that was taken from you. That's critical, ain't it? I want to pause for a minute before I let them say something before we leave and declare you're going to recover all. I want to speak that. I want to change that because that sounds good, but it may not be accurate. You're going to recover everything God told you to pursue. Because there's certain stuff the enemy came and took, God wanted took. It's certain stuff God, and I believe David knew everything shouldn't be recovered. Let's get ready to lead tonight. What are you hearing from God concerning what we talked about tonight? Jump in there.
It just reminded me of the importance of seeking God in everything that you do.
Yeah.
When you were sharing that last part, I thought about Moses, and he asked God, should I go up from this place? And he said, I can't go up if your presence doesn't go. If your spirit doesn't go with me, I'm not willing to move from here. So no matter what it looks like you lost, if God isn't there with you and you aren't sure of his presence, don't move until you know.
Pastor Hollis, jump in there.
I think it shows the sovereignty of God, because David is dealing with having lost his family and the families of his men because he decided to bust a move that God hadn't given him permission to. And he's able to intelligently and immediately apply this lesson and say, now, even though I want to go get my family, even though they're putting pressure on me saying they're going to kill me if we don't do something, let me stop and pray. Because the only thing that would make this situation worse is if I repeat the same mistake again.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Pastor Harry.
One of the things that we see, the custom of that day was that when raiders came in, they would kill the men, take the women and children and the elderly. In essence, they would only kill those who they knew were a threat. And so what I want to say, especially to men, is one of the things that I'm praying for all of our men is that we re-engage and recapture our emotional maturity. I think one of the attacks of the enemy is trying to keep men from being intimate. If he can stop a man from being intimate, he can pull him out of his spiritual relationship. He can stop him from being a great husband. He can stop him from being a great father, stop him from being a great leader. Because the moment we stop learning to handle our emotions, we stop seeing people as people. And so one of the things I'm praying for is that God would give men again the ability to really see that intimacy is not weakness, but it's actually strength.
Pastor Hollis, Pastor James.
Yeah, I see, if I look at David and like you said with the prayer, I see profitable pressure. I see pressure that we actually profit from. I look at some situations we would never leave if it wasn't for pressure. There's some songs like Big that would have never been written if it wasn't for pressure.
Yeah.
There's some places in our life that we wouldn't pray if it wasn't for pressure. And so I think I'm calling, all men, all people, all Rock City family, the world, to not look at pressure as a bad thing, but maybe there's some profit in the pressure you're going through, that maybe God's trying to push you closer to him, not further away from him. And that's what I'm praying and believing for.
Say that again. What he said?
Profit in the pressure.
Profit in the pressure. Profitable pressure. That God is not taking you through this just to take you through it. It is painful, but it's profitable. It's painful, but it's profitable. And I want to prophesy, man, that yes, we have some things that we're going through that may not be comfortable, but they're going to be profitable. You got me? One of the things God's been dealing with me with, I heard the Spirit of the Lord tell me this week, God always gives you a word in part. He said, Michael, it's time to release your church. And I was like, ooh, what that mean? What that mean? What that mean? And what I believe the Holy Spirit was telling me was, Michael, you've built it. Now let them nurture it. Did you catch what I'm saying right there? I believe a lot of times what God is doing in our lives, I wonder who was advising David before he left for that battle. See, them the questions I have now going on 40. Who was he talking to? He told the priest to bring him the ephod, but where was the priest in the decision? Or was he so prideful at that season where, jump in there, come on, let's go.
You just hit something, because I think David, again, he brings to the forefront the battle between our humanity and our divinity. David is divine enough to know where to get the answer, but he's so human, he don't always ask.
Say it again.
He is divine enough to know exactly where to get the answer, but he is so human that he doesn't always come and ask.
Say it again. Say it again.
He's asking God, shall I go up now? But as Pastor Hollis said, when he goes the first time, he doesn't inquire of God. He allows his circumstance to dictate his decision. And he shows us this wrestle that we have between the part of us that knows that God wants the best for us and he knows what to do, but also our humanity that's sometimes so prideful that when we make up our decision, we want to go and do what we want to do.
Yeah, like it's crazy. The priest is there the whole time. The priest said, you know what, I'm going with you. Like the priest left Israel to go with him, and you never thought to pray before you move in with the enemy. The exact people who don't like you and just took you in, hoping that you would help them to destroy. It's crazy.
We can do this all night.
All night.
Because again, David's challenge is that he's constantly fighting this battle of choices. Again, this book is all about choices. It's Saul who did it his way versus David. Saul, who was anointed by man, versus David, who was anointed by God. Saul, who was anointed out of a flask, which is man-made, versus David, who was anointed out of a horn, who is God-made. It's this juxtaposition between how people do things and what happens when you make your choices. And this same David makes this choice to go this direction because he thinks this is the path of least resistance.
Right.
Never realizing that sometimes God wants you in the midst of hard things.
Yes.
That he leaves you in the territory with a Saul.
Right.
Because he needs to learn how to teach you how to handle it, because he knows one day you're going to have an Absalom.
Yeah.
He knows one day you're going to be on the other end.
Right.
That one day you're going to have to battle with that. And so sometimes he allows us to stay in difficult situations, and he says, don't run away.
Right.
I'm going to grow you away.
Right.
Jump in there. Jump in there.
That's crazy, because even in that, like when you speak about Absalom, had he not dealt with Saul in the proper perspective, I wonder how left the story between Absalom could have gone, because Saul treated him like a son. You know, Saul took him in, he made him second only to his child. And then even his child recognized who David was, to the point that he said, no, I will follow you to the ends of the earth. But you know, again, had he gone in there with the big head, oh, I've been anointed king 3 or 4 times, I know who I am. How would they have played out?
James, jump in there. I see you, bro.
Yeah, it was when you said something, I thought about, you said God keeps us in certain situations sometimes because he knows what's down the road. Of course, we see to the corner, he sees around the corner. And I just learned during this whole virus.
Stop. Say that again, James. Come on.
Yeah, we see to the corner, but God sees around the corner. And so what I learned during this virus, what I learned about this virus is that when you get vaccinated, they actually put some of the virus in you because it builds up your immune system so that when the real attack comes, your body, you're able to fight it, you're able to defend against it. And so for me, it was like, that's why God puts us. I believe that's why he lets us stay in certain situations, put some of that in us so that when the real attack comes, our spiritual immune system is built up. We can handle the fight, we can handle the pressure.
We can be here all night.
That's so good.
We can be here all night because so many people are wrestling.
Yeah.
So many people are wrestling, and what I'm trying to be as a spiritual father, what I'm trying to be right now as a pastor, I am trying to position myself to where God, get this stuff out of me so I don't become a heel to those I'm trying to lead. What happens if I take y'all to a battle we shouldn't be in? That's why when everybody was asking me to fight the church in our city, who made some comments, and everybody's coming, I knew something was going on. My page followers was jumping by the hundreds every day. Like, when Pastor Mike gonna say something? And the Holy Spirit, I'm grateful because tonight I see, had we ran to a battle we shouldn't have been in, what would have got lost?
Wow. That's so good.
I'm trying to be a part of the solution. I like that. Like, I'm grateful now that I get phone calls like the one I got today from Miles College, where they're finna be the first HBCU to have a Black Lives Matter mural on their campus, and our church was able to pay for that and say, hey, no, we got y'all, let's make history. No, that 3,000, let's make history. You get what I'm saying? So I'm ready to fight the battles. Let's stop, we in it too much. The God ordained battles.
That's good. Wow.
Father, in Jesus' name, I pray that you cover and keep us. Oh God, I pray for every person who has some things that they need to kill so it won't touch our posterity. God, I thank you for some people who are holy and humble. God, I thank you that we're so sincere that even our cameraman got his hand lifted right now. Because God, although we're doing the work of God, we don't want to lose our love for God. So God, we ask in this moment that you cover us. We ask in this moment that you keep us. God, I pray right now for those who have lost some stuff because they're in some situations they shouldn't be in. God, I claim spiritual authority for every man and woman watching me tonight. Yes, God, I thank you that you're doing what eyes have not seen and ears have not heard. God, I ask in this moment that if we have gotten out of the will of God, bring us back into your will. God, I thank you for grace, because the scripture says that he burned their city to the ground, kidnapped the women and children, but nobody died. So God, I'm grateful that it's some stuff that I lost during my seasons of being out of position, but I still got it back, God. So I declare prophetically, we shall recover all. We shall recover all. It's in Jesus' name we pray. And everybody said, amen. Come on, clap your hands. The ability to focus can make or break your success in life. In fact, scientists consider the ability to establish mental focus as an important predictor of a person's future success. Can we argue that the same way tired people need rest, distracted people need focus? We've been saying for the last couple of weeks, and I believe it's worth repeating, that the same way tired people need rest, distracted people need focus. We've been arguing intensively and intentionally that the question or the primary issue may not be that you aren't smart enough, that you're not gifted enough, that you're not connected enough, that you're not rich enough. Right. But the problem simply may be that you're not focused enough. And I don't know about you guys, man, but as we embark on our 21-day fast in the morning, and if you have not registered, do me a favor, pull your phone out right now and text FASTLANE. FASTLANE to 28950. They've told me that we have set a record at Rock City. Here's a good place to hit me with every heart you can and every high five in the comments right now. More than 3,000 people. That's amazing. How y'all not gonna clap up here? Come on, man. More than 3,000 people have signed on to register to be a part of the Focus 21 days of fasting and prayer. I want to give a quick commercial because it's our goal that you remain what? Focused. It's our goal that you remain focused. Tonight on the app, it's going to flip. And there'll be a part on the app where you can go. We're giving you an onboarding lesson, a couple key quick lessons about what you're about to do, information, focus rooms, why. I'm going to say it and I'm going to say it again. I want this to be the strongest, most focused year of my life. So I am giving God my January so he can bless my February through December. I love that. Somebody ought to shout, I'm focused, man. I'm telling you, the problem may not be that you aren't smart enough, that you aren't connected enough, that you aren't educated enough, but the problem may be, the primary problem may be that you aren't focused enough. And I want to argue with you today that we must learn and grow to master the ability to control our attention. That's good. The control of our attention is so critical. I believe there's one word that comes to my mind called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance, or biblically, that's what, Darius? Hypocrisy. So some of us aren't focused because we suffer from cognitive dissonance. It's right there on your screen. Cognitive dissonance, or what they call biblically hypocrisy. Now define what that is biblically.
Hypocrisy or cognitive dissonance is when you say what you don't believe or even do what you don't believe.
Say that again. It's when you say
what you don't believe
or
do what you don't
talk
believe.
About that.
It's amazing because even once you get saved, you have to distinguish what you believe. It's like if you confess with your mouth, but also believe in your heart. And many times in the Christian faith, this is why I believe there's such a mental health crisis in the body of Christ, because we're saying things in church that we're not believing in our heart. And what we have to realize when we say cognitive dissonance, when we talk about transformation of change, it can only happen when it starts at the heart level. As a man thinketh in his heart,
so is he.
So is he.
I think my dad growing up, do you remember this? Dad used to say, my heart has changed.
Oh, yes.
My mind is changing, but my body is waiting on change. There's a disconnect. And what you're telling me now is your heart has changed, but your mind hasn't shifted.
Yes, sir.
There is a cognitive disconnect.
I love that.
Come on. And when you have this cognitive dissonance, you'll end up saying things in faith. But because you play with empty words in the past, you have conditioned your heart to not even believe what's coming out of your mouth.
So when I say this is going to be my strongest year, you're saying it out your mouth by faith. But in your heart, you don't even believe it. Because you've experienced so much in the past. It keeps you trapped in your past, even though you're making positive confessions in your present, which means your future is held hostage by the
the hurt of your past, even though your present is saying something worthwhile. I'm trying to be better. Michael, I am trying to be focused. Somebody say focus. We must learn to grow and master the ability to control our attention. Talk about that.
That's so good. Two things, because what you just talked about, cognitive dissonance, reminds me what the Bible says, double-minded.
Yes, sir.
That's what the Bible says. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Because I've learned that a double mind produces a double mouth. That when you got a
Run
double,
it back.
let me say it again. A double
It jumped
mind
off early, didn't it?
produces a double mouth.
Yes, sir.
That is possible because your mind and your heart are on the same page. Your mouth don't know what to say. Right? And so you'll speak faith one day and then speak fear another day.
Double mouth.
Double mouth. All right. So it's what the Harvard Business Review calls a cognitive control. Right. Colloquially, we refer to it as willpower. In other words, it's the ability to stay focused in the face of temptation to be distracted and to wonder. And many times we've got to develop the ability to remain controlled in our thinking. Because until our mind is controlled, our actions will always be unstable.
Fruit of the Spirit.
It's the fruit of the Spirit. And it's so crazy. And you said, I talked about cognitive dissonance.
Yes, sir.
You just talked about cognitive
control.
Cognitive control. So cognitive dissonance is when you're saying something out of your mouth that you necessarily don't believe in your heart.
Yes, sir.
But then cognitive control is
when you're able to stay focused in the face of the temptation to wonder.
Cognitive control right now, and I don't mind you seeing this. And Dre, do me a favor. This is probably preaching suicide, what I'm about to say right here. They're going to heat me up in the comments. Somebody's going to say it's the feet for me. Dre, shoot wide real quick. If you look right now, I don't have on a shoe because I suffer from something called gout. It's where the uric acids in my foot begin to swell and my foot is on fire. Thank you so much to one of my members who sent me a foot massage and said, Pastor, get better. But I had to tell myself before, take it off my feet now. Thank you, Dre. I had to tell myself before I started preaching. I sat here and had a conversation with myself. I needed cognitive control.
Oh, wow.
I said, you know what? Foot, you don't hurt. I am on assignment and I got to preach.
That's good.
So for the next 40 minutes, you have no authority over my body. I am not allowing you to take hold of my mind. Is it hurting? Yes. But I've caught my focus. Somebody say focus.
Focus.
I choose to focus on the assignment, not the affliction.
You preaching, man. You preaching.
I choose to focus on the assignment, not the affliction.
You preaching.
Will this cup pass from me? The answer's no. When the answer wasn't even no. He didn't even give God a chance to respond.
Nevertheless.
He said nevertheless. Because I realized if the affliction is a part of the assignment, then I must keep God my attention so I can remain focused.
That's good.
Somebody say focus. We must learn to grow and master the ability to control our attention. So I want to answer this question. Pastor Mike, I see you in the comments. Somebody just put, it's the foot for me. I see you in the comments. How do we attempt then to do that? And where do we begin? How do we attempt to learn and grow to master the ability of controlling our attention? I'll tell you one of the secrets. I believe it is found in your decisions and in your daily routine. I'm going to say that again. In your decisions and in your daily routines. Take notes. I tell you what, I need 10 people to put that in the comments right now. Decisions and daily routines. Let's take a vote right now. Whichever one you need to focus on more, the most, I want you to write. If it's decisions, type decisions. If it's daily routines, type daily routines right there. Why is that important? Put this in your notes. Go to Instagram. I tell you what, I'm finna count down from 10. Pull your cell phone out and I want you to record the screen and tag us right now on Instagram and we're gonna share it with you. Are you ready? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. You got your phone. 4, 5, whichever one. 3, 2, 1. Check this out. The secret to success is always found in your daily routine. You don't become successful in a day, but rather success comes daily.
I love that.
Did you catch that?
That's good.
The secret to success
good,
is
Pastor.
always found, stay there, in your daily routine. Tell me what you do daily. I'll show you where you'll be tomorrow.
That's good. That's
That's
so good.
crazy, isn't it?
That's good.
Let's talk about the power of a good daily routine.
That's so good. I believe it was John Maxwell who said, "You are what you do daily."
That's good.
And I even love the fact of this, that many people are suffering for what I call destination disease. That many people are so caught up on the destination that they're abandoning the power of the day.
That's
that
good.
when you put your hope and your goals and your faith in the destination, you'll miss out on what God is doing in the journey.
good.
Destination disease.
Destination disease.
Destination disease. Oh, I want to take. I got to admit, my brother Cole, man. I'm just being honest with you.
That's good.
My brother Cole. I want to say this because I got to push back now. Well, I'm gonna add to it.
Okay.
You said destination disease.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call it in another form of destination disease. I never forget when I decided I wanted to buy a car. I stopped doing all the maintenance and upkeep on my current car because I was focused on what was coming.
That's good.
Too many people right now are abandoning or aborting your daily routine
That's good.
at the expense of your future dream.
That's good.
That's so good.
What are you doing now?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What are you doing now? Because I'm gonna say it again, success does not come in a day.
That's good.
Success comes daily.
That's good.
You're not going to become successful in a day.
Yeah.
That's
You're
so
not going to
good.
wake up tomorrow and boom, I'm successful, which is why most people, 99% of the people who hit the lottery end up broke again.
Wow.
Because they didn't have a daily process of stewardship.
That's good.
They just hit it in one day.
That's good.
I don't want a lottery glory experience. I want a process.
Yes.
I am
Good.
grateful. I didn't understand it, and y'all gonna have to jump in because I'm on one today. I didn't understand it, and shout out to Kerry Douglas, Black Smoke Music, Black Smoke Worldwide. That's who I'm with. I never forget when he took me on my music journey, and he called me and said, "Hey, you're number 90." And I was like, "Man, when we gonna go top 10?" He said, "I got a process." He said, "If I take you to the top out the gate, the song won't ruminate or resonate with listeners."
Wow.
Meaning a song will be on the top tomorrow and it'll be gone and you never remembered it.
Yeah.
He said, but if we take the slow journey, by the time we get to the top,
that's preaching.
then it'll get in your soul.
Yes, sir.
I'm telling you right now, many of you are ready to blow up tomorrow.
Yeah.
And what if God is saying, if I blow you up tomorrow and you get there, your character won't be able to handle the climb. See, the climb develops the character.
Yeah. That's good.
I don't think nobody heard me.
That's good.
The climb develops the character,
Yes,
or
sir.
the pain or the process
That's
helps promote the strength and develop the strength you're going to need
I love that.
to get where you need to be.
I love that.
Jump in there.
We talked about decisions in a daily routine. A daily routine is simply you making a decision to remain focused in the face of distractions.
Yeah.
When I have a daily routine, I remember we said this years ago, and in fact, I think you mentioned this watch night, that you're born looking like your parents, but you die looking like your decisions.
That's good.
If
Yes,
you're
sir.
going to be focused, then that means you got to decide when you wake up in the morning. All right, I could get on Instagram and see what everybody's doing, but my routine means that I'm deciding to spend time with God.
Yes, sir.
All right, now I'm at my lunch break. I could go kick it with my coworkers and laugh and joke and talk about people, but my routine means I'm deciding to do a midday motivation and spend some time with God.
I could go to the buffet.
But I'm
deciding. I'm getting on this fast.
See, the difference between where you are and where you want to be is a series of decisions.
You better preach for I preach.
I'm deciding every day to make a decision to stay focused.
That's right.
I'm deciding every day. You know what? I'm going to work to be a better husband. I'm working to be a better father. I'm working to be a better steward. I'm working to stay focused.
Let me jump in there because I feel a preaching moment right here.
Sir.
I'm going to shoot it out and one of y'all got to catch it. I'm throwing it to you. I just made a decision that I'm not going to cry no more. I make a decision.
Yes, sir. I made a decision to take my life to another level.
I made a decision
to stay focused on my money.
I made a decision that what's in the past is still in the past.
That's good.
I made a decision to be all as God has called me to be.
I'm making a decision to leave old people and old patterns where they are.
I made a decision that in spite, look at it, my foot hurt right now.
Yeah.
I will bless the Lord at all times. And his praises will be in my mouth.
on,
The difference between the 2020 you and the 2021 you is going to be a decision.
Come on, man.
Why you didn't didn't call me back no more?
decided.
I made a decision. Why you don't come around no more? I made a decision.
Yes.
Why you didn't buy that when you had the money? Because I made a decision
Come on,
that
man.
if I can't buy it twice,
Yes.
I ain't gonna buy it once.
That's good.
I made a decision.
That's good.
Somebody type decisions. Decisions, but also in my daily routine.
Yes, sir.
Now, I said something when we were prepping for this sermon today, and I told y'all to make sure we remind, and we should have filmed the prep.
Yeah.
When we sit on the floor and just open the Bible and dig into what we're doing, we got to start doing more of that.
Yes, sir.
I made a decision. I said, you know what? I want to make sure that we just don't teach and preach, but give practical
Yes, sir.
ways
Yes, sir.
they can do this. So here's an example, a life example on how you can maintain your focus. Because what we must do then, if once we realize that our life is the sum total of decisions and daily routines, I want to say this real slow, then we have to, put this in your notes, identify and correct the distractions.
That's good.
Now, we said that this past week, identify and correct the distraction. So I want to give you a practical way to identify and correct the distraction. Here's a practical way right here. I'm in my office writing today's message. I called a win. We had another sermon planned.
Yes, sir.
This morning I woke up and I was like, I feel something.
Yeah.
And I began to write. And the Holy Spirit began to just lay things on my heart. And I noticed that while I was writing, I stopped and did an Instagram post. I stopped and made another Instagram video. I ended up FaceTiming the kids. And then the Holy Spirit said, distraction.
Yeah.
I made the consequential mistake of charging my phone where I was studying. So how do I identify? Number one, I identified that the distraction to my studying was my what? My phone.
Your phone.
I identified it. So how do I correct that?
Yeah.
I picked my charger up, put it on the opposite side of the room, and charged my phone.
That's good.
So now, in order for me to succumb to the distraction, I had to willingly give up my focus.
Oh my God.
Was your focus taken, or did you lay it down?
Lay it down.
So good.
Yes.
That's crazy,
good.
ain't it?
That's
Yes, sir.
good.
Did your focus get taken, or did you lay it down? And many of you may never be as successful as you can be.
Yeah.
Notice I didn't say successful.
Yeah.
Because I believe we all will experience a modicum of some total of
Some
success.
level of
some
success.
level of
Yes, sir.
success.
Yes, sir.
But I believe some of us won't be as successful as we can be. Why?
Yeah.
We're too distracted. And I want to tell you that a distraction is the destruction of your dream in slow motion.
My
You got to
God.
say that again.
A distraction is the destruction of your dream in slow motion. Whenever you succumb to a distraction, you slowly turn your attention and have no idea that while you're looking at the distraction, the dream is dying slowly.
Jesus.
And I refuse to allow my dream to remain on hospice.
No, sir. Come on, man.
I refuse to allow my dream to remain on hospice. I'm giving my dream life support
Bringing it
when
back
I
to
give
life.
it what?
Focus. Yes.
Attention.
My focus.
So
Somebody talk about that.
That's so good.
That's good.
You're sitting. I'm tripping because you just said distraction is the destruction of your dream in slow motion.
Slow motion.
In other words, when I'm distracted, it messes up my pace because purpose has a pace.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
good.
whenever I'm distracted, I love what you said. You took your phone and placed it on the other side. You were practically showing us that when we have distractions, we need to learn how to create distance
Yes. Good.
between us and what's distracting
That's
us.
good.
Because
Stop. No.
That's good. That's good.
No. Put this in your notes. Put this in the comments. I must create distance
Yes.
between me and the distraction.
Yes, sir.
Keep going.
Because everything does not require elimination. Some things just need moderation.
Yes.
And sometimes when you're going through focus,
Jesus.
you need to learn what needs to be eliminated
Yes.
and what needs to be moderated.
That's so good. Can I push you? Can I push you right
Yes,
there?
sir.
Because with distractions, there's some distractions you can't remove, you have to ignore. Right? Your phone is essential.
Yes, sir.
In one season.
My wife needs
But
to
it's
be present,
you got
Kids gotta
kids,
call me.
you got a wife,
Yes.
you got business calls you got to make. So what's a distraction, what's necessary in one season becomes a distraction in another. So that means that I may not can remove it, but I can ignore it. Right? I remember when we just had a new baby, Allison, right? So we already had Ava. That's my first grader. We just had Allison. Allison comes home from the hospital in the middle of the school year. Corona is hit. Kids are at home.
She's learning at home.
And so now Ava is distracted by her baby sister. She hear baby crying. She want to hold her. She want to play with her. Now, Allison is just as important as Ava.
You can't put her out.
I can't put her out.
Yeah.
She's my baby. So I had a conversation with Ava and said, baby, I know you want to play with your little sister, but you're going to have to learn to tune that out.
Jesus.
Because you got to remain focused. There are some distractions that come with your destiny.
Yes.
You want God to blow up your business, people going to call you.
Yeah.
People going to want to have a conversation.
Yeah.
You can't want to be big and avoid the distractions that come with it. So there's some things that cannot be removed. You simply have to learn to ignore it.
Jesus.
See, we got to understand when we talk about distractions, we're also talking about destiny.
Come on,
and when
man.
we talk about destiny, we have to realize that decisions are the doorway to destiny.
Yes.
And decisions literally has Latin roots, means to cut off. There are some things that won't make the cut in 2021
Yes.
that I gave too much attention to in 2020.
Jesus.
Because I'm making a decision. And when I make a decision, what I'm doing is taking a knife and cutting off what's not going to fit.
Can I preach that for
Yeah,
you?
come on,
I
preach
need
it,
somebody in the comment section to just type cut it off.
Cut it off.
That in order for me to be who God has called me to be, I got to cut it off.
Cut it off.
You acting funny? No, I'm acting focused. I had to cut it off. In order for me to be who God has called me to be, something got to get cut off.
Can I jump in a little
Come on,
bit?
man.
I'll get some more, because sometimes I'm not acting funny. The problem is whenever you have focus requires someone to be a fighter. And many
Jesus.
people can't fight because they don't have focus.
Oh my God. Jesus.
Distractions. But do you see how powerful they are?
Yes.
How powerful distractions are. And if you're watching me right now, I'm trying to give you practical ways. We're trying to give you practical ways to overcome distractions and remain focused. But one thing, and we're going to get to this later in this month or probably next month, I need you to guard your gates.
Yes.
Men are distracted by what they see.
Yes.
Women are distracted by what they hear.
Come on,
which
man.
is why if you want to catch a man's attention, you put something nice on. And when he sees it, oh my God.
It catches his attention.
It's attention.
Yes.
He's now distracted.
Yeah.
Or you'll see an ugly brother with a beautiful girl.
Yes.
It's because he knew how to say what she needed to hear.
Yes.
So you need to learn that there should be distance
Yes.
between you and the thing that is distracting you. And I want to submit to you that we have to stop playing with our distractions. Too many of us are playing
Yes.
with our distractions.
Yes.
And we need to say something that I believe most people don't want to do, because I want to say that certain people are too guilty of over spiritualizing everything.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I don't have no money because the devil attacked my finances. No, you bought stuff you shouldn't have bought.
Yes, sir.
Or, you
Yep.
know, the devil met. No, you were just being messy.
Yes, sir.
Everything ain't the devil.
Yep.
But I want to say sometimes we are guilty of not making things spiritual enough. I want to say something that may get me in trouble.
Come on, man.
Distractions are evil.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I just lost half the church right
Yes,
there.
sir.
What is evil? Let's define evil. Evil is anything that distracts you from your purpose or your God-given mission.
That's good.
Evil is anything
That's good,
that
Pastor.
distracts
That's
you
good.
from your God-given purpose or your God-given mission. And I want to submit to you, Pastor Mike, well, how do I know it's evil? Evil is determined by its function in your life.
Wow.
Did you catch that?
Yes, sir.
Evil is defined or determined by its function in your life. And I want to say this right here, and I pray you can catch this. Some of you are succumbing to evil distractions, but they're good.
Wow.
I want to say, because there's a difference between good works and dead works.
Yes.
Is that cool?
Yes.
Good works and dead works. So Pastor Mike, what are dead works? Dead works, I'm going to read it to you. Dead works are good works that God hasn't specifically assigned you to do. I don't think you heard me.
That's good.
Dead works are good works that God hasn't specifically assigned you to do. I want to give you a practical example, because right now nonprofits are popular.
Yes, sir.
Everybody's trying to start a nonprofit. Some for the good reason, some because they just want some type of stimulus check or something. Okay, but I looked up at one point, and one of my members had started a nonprofit mentoring young ladies. Then all of a sudden, she said, and then three other women said, "You know what? I always wanted to do that too," and they started. Now watch this. 3 of them had about 5 girls in their group.
Wow.
I'm sure that what they're doing for those girls are good.
Yeah.
But I hate it because they're dead works.
That's
They're
good.
doing it because it was popular, or they're doing it because they feel that someone else did it, I can do it.
Yeah.
But if God didn't call you do it, it may work out good for the one you're doing it for.
Yeah.
But it's still dead work to you.
And it's ultimately a distraction for you.
Yes.
Because what you chose to do is a distraction from what you were called to do.
Jesus.
I think I need to say that again.
Say it again.
What you chose to do can become a distraction from what you're called to do. See, we're created for good works, not every work.
Say it again.
We're created for good works, not every work. which means there are things that I may want to do that aren't necessarily in my wheelhouse. I remember when Clubhouse hit. And it really got to become a big thing a few months ago. And I really haven't been that active on there over the course of the past few weeks because I realized that I was getting pulled into conversations that, truth be told, didn't necessarily match up with what God had called me to. It didn't necessarily match up to what I was passionate about. And so I was doing things and getting in conversations because I was invited to it. See, you got to be careful because sometimes the devil will use an invitation to distract you. Hey, sometimes the devil will use an invitation. Hey, girl, come hang out with us. No, I can't. Hey, come on vacation with us. I'm supposed to be saving money this year.
Let me put some scripture on it. Nehemiah, come down.
Yes. Come down. Wow.
I can't come down.
You just went up a
level. That was an invitation.
Yes.
I'm doing a what?
Great work.
So I can't come down. That's crazy.
Sometimes you have to learn to turn down some invitations in order for you to stay focused on what God has called you to do.
Focus is tantamount to who God is calling us to be.
That's good.
It is focus that is going to keep us in the midst of difficult seasons.
Yes.
With everything that happened this week on Capitol Hill, with everything that's happening in America, that the very thread of social injustice and racial discrimination is being ripped apart. We must remain focused.
Yes, sir.
We can't loot in our own communities. Let's remain focused. We can't go backwards when God is calling us higher and to another level. We must remain focused. I love that beautiful black sister, that beautiful black queen from Georgia, Stacey Abrams, who in the midst of what I call voter fraud and some other injustices that her election was, in my opinion, robbed from her. She didn't waddle in neglect or waddle in misery. She remained focused and said, you know what? Bet. It won't happen again. Now they flipped the whole state because the focused ones who can take their pain and get extract the lesson from the pain.
Wow.
This is critical because all of us will be dealt pain. It's what you are able to remain focused and extract from the pain that's going to help you get the glory. Am I talking to anybody? When we go to this pregnant Matthean text, we find a very popular narrative that all of us have heard as we matriculated through Sunday School 101. It's Peter and his boys on a boat in a storm. And they see Jesus. I'm not going to insult your intelligence and preach this entire text. We're only using this as a launch pad to leap from so we can give you some principles that you can make applicable to your everyday life.
Come on, man.
In Matthew chapter 14, verses 28 and 30, look at this text. Then Peter called to him, Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you, walking on the water. Verse 29, yes, come, Jesus said. So Peter went on the other side of the boat and began to walk on water. Look at verse 22 and 23. Let's give it some context. Immediately he made the disciples get into the boat. I want to stop right there. I'm going to be honest. We may not get off of that one sentence. You don't need a lot of sentences when you know what you're doing. Look at verse 22. Immediately, somebody say immediately. He made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side. Now, when we see immediately in verse 22, it forces us to ask or begs to ask the question, what just happened in verse what? 21. And verse 21, what's happening, PMJ? Jesus is busy doing what he was called to do. He's in purpose. He's in an assignment. Christ in verse 22 sent the disciples across the lake and dismissed the crowd. I see two things in verse 22. I see where Jesus sent and Jesus dismissed.
That's good.
Now, to the naked eye and to the immature ear, you believe those are the same things. He sent the disciples across the lake. He dismissed the crowd.
Come on, man.
Sent denotes that I'm going to catch up with you. Dismiss means we're done. Sent means we have future business. Dismiss means you've gotten what you need from me.
That's good.
Now go on about your way.
That's good.
I want to argue that somebody watching me right now, you are caught smack dab in the midst of two decisions. Are you going to send them
or dismiss them?
Come on. And the problem I have is I've been sending folk I should have dismissed. And dismissing folk I should have sent. Am I preaching to anybody?
You got to hit a mic.
Michael! I have to make a decision in 2021. I love you, but you are dismissed.
Come on, man.
I gave you another chance to break my heart, and you did it again. So as of right now, you are
dismissed.
Yes.
I keep telling you, this is our year to get focused.
Yeah.
You don't want to fast with me.
Nope.
Don't want to watch church with me. You ain't even got to come to church.
Yep.
All I need you to do is go on YouTube and listen to church.
Wherever
and
you
you
are.
still can't do that.
Yeah.
So as of now, right now, you
Dismissed.
are dismissed. Pastor Mike, being dismissive and dismissing people. I didn't say being dismissive. I said dismiss. I'm not being disrespectful.
Wow.
I'm making a decision and a mature statement as an adult.
Yes.
I am looking at you or texting you or sending you a voice note
Come on,
saying,
man.
as of this moment,
Yeah.
go ahead and do what you're gonna do. Because
Jesus.
I am too focused to keep playing where you are.
I love that.
Dismiss. Pastor Mike, that ain't biblical. Yes, it is. I believe they said it like this. May the Lord
Watch.
between me and thee
While we're
absent one from another.
Yes.
In other words, that was the churchy way of dismissing people. Jesus
Yes.
says, I'm going to send y'all over here. I'm going
Yeah.
to catch up with you. As for y'all
Y'all are
dismissed.
dismissed.
Why is PMJ?
So good.
Because the disciples were there for discipleship.
Yes.
The crowd was there for deliverance and miracles.
Wow.
See, focus. Somebody say focus.
Focus.
100 people out of tight focus
Yes,
right
sir.
now. If I'm preaching to you, if we're preaching to you, if you're getting anything out of this and you haven't shared, you are robbing the people in your life
Absolutely.
of the level of focus that they need to be on.
Absolutely.
How can you get a word like this and
Yeah.
not share it? How can you get a
100%.
word like this and not heart it? Because heart is the new hallelujah.
Yes, sir. Come on.
How can you get a word like this and not say something? Listen to your boy when I say this right here. The mistake many of you are going to make because you have a big heart,
Wow.
a heart that God placed in you. It is a good heart, but it is also a big heart. You have a bleeding heart. You're going to allow certain people to come with you and they're going to drain every inch of life out of you. Jesus says, because I've been so busy in purpose, watch this now, I need y'all to go here.
Yeah.
And y'all to get out.
That's good.
This is so important, YPMJ, because we told you this and Hollis jumping this. It's hard to do what?
It's hard to be focused when you're fatigued.
It is hard to be focused
When you're fatigued. Yes.
And when fatigue walks in the door,
Yeah.
focus walks out.
Yes, sir.
It's hard to be focused when you're fatigued. I love being practical. Can I be pragmatic?
Yes, sir, please.
I'm gonna say this, and y'all know y'all gonna bust out laughing when I say it. There are certain professions that can't afford to be tired and operate. There are certain professions and certain jobs
Yeah.
you just can't be fatigued on the job. I'm gonna
sir.
name one. My pilot. If I get on a plane, and I ain't trying to be funny.
Yeah.
If I get on the plane and I look in the cockpit and he doing this,
Yawning. Yeah, I gotta go.
I need my money back.
I gotta go.
I ain't trying to go down
No,
with this
sir.
play. Let me say this. My doctor.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When I had surgery this year and I looked at the doctor, he gave me a fist pump and his spirit made me rest better.
Yeah.
If he had walked in and said, no, you're my 12th one today, I got 2 more. I would say, no, we're going to wait till tomorrow.
That's good.
Because I don't need you in my body.
That's good.
Fatigue. My parents.
Yes.
All my parents. A lot of you are fussing and beating on your children and yelling at them and cussing them out and sending them to their room and not spending time with them because you fatigued.
You tired. Yeah.
You tired.
Yeah.
You tired. I'm gonna say this in 3. Y'all gonna catch it. My pastor. I
Yeah.
need my. See, I didn't. I used to say things like, "I'll rest when I'm dead."
Yeah.
That ain't good for you or me.
Yeah. Wow.
You
Wow.
need me rested
Come
and
on,
prayed
man.
up.
Come
you
on, man.
need me focused and alert, hearing
that.
from God,
Say
so
that.
I can give you fresh manna.
Yeah.
A fresh word from God.
Yeah.
If I'm a tired pastor, now I'm just preaching recycled sermons
Yeah.
and barely giving you what you need, and I can't intercede. I can't pray.
Yeah.
There are certain positions. What God is calling you to
Yes,
is
sir.
too pivotal
Yeah.
for you to be fatigued.
That's so good.
And I want to submit. I'm gonna say this. This may be one of the worst ones. You can't be asleep and driving. Who's ever been driving fatigued?
Wow.
I'm
Yes,
gonna
sir.
I'm gonna
Yep.
put y'all on the hot seat. Let's play Family Feud right here. Hit your seat when you got the answer. First one, get it. All right. Name the worst thing to do. Name something you do while driving fatigue.
Swerve.
Swerve.
Drift.
Drift. All right. My answer: let the window down. See, so when I get tired, first thing I do
so
is do
true.
what? Crack the window.
Yes.
Because I say things like the sound of the wind.
Yeah.
Or the wind gonna keep me up.
Yeah.
See, many of you right now are dating a window down. Many of you don't realize that what you're drinking is just letting the window down. Many of you don't realize, let me cut some music on. The half of the
Jesus.
conversations you in that you shouldn't be in is you just turning the radio
Oh
on.
my
Oh,
God.
wow.
You are moving fatigue, and when you move fatigue,
Jesus.
hey, I'm gonna say this: don't wreck,
Yeah.
because you fell asleep at the wheel.
Jesus.
Wow.
It's a substitute for actually being rested and focused.
Jesus
Christ.
A substitute.
It's a substitute.
You want to know what's crazy about a substitute?
Yes, sir.
A substitute teacher comes in and does exactly what the teacher gets paid to do.
Yes.
But doesn't make
what
the same thing the teacher makes.
Yes.
Because the substitute doesn't have a qualification the accreditation.
Yeah.
I want to say that I'm done being a spiritual substitute.
Jesus.
Reefer sometimes is a substitute.
Oh, man. Wow.
Liquor sometimes is a substitute.
You blessing me.
Sex sometimes is a substitute.
That's good, sir.
Food sometimes is a substitute. Binge watching is sometimes a substitute.
Yeah.
I want to argue that if we're going to be focused this year, we got to learn to discern or decipher between what's essential and what's a substitute.
That's good,
yeah,
sir.
I would love to jump in right there
Jesus
because
Christ.
as we talk about how when fatigue walks in the door, focus walks out, it's important to realize that when weariness walks in, wisdom walks out. You cannot make good decisions with a tired brain.
That's good.
And many times we don't even realize your choices will change when you're full. See, some of
Whoa! Yes, sir.
No!
Come on, man.
You said, said something. I said when fatigue walks in, what?
Focus walks out. Yes, sir.
You said when weariness walks in.
Wisdom.
Now, let's talk. No, now weariness is an elevated level of fatigue.
Yes.
Yeah. See, weariness
just leveled
is
up.
an elevated level of fatigue.
Yes,
so you're saying no, not only did focus walk out, but now you've been in fatigue so long, you've now become weary. And when weariness walks in, wisdom walks out.
Foolish.
And you make better decisions when you're full.
Yes, sir.
See, when you're hungry, you eat whatever available.
Anything. Yeah.
When you're full and prepared, you can prepare a dish.
That's good. That's so good. You know what y'all are making me think about? Think about Jacob and Esau.
Come on.
Esau is weary. He's tired.
Yes, sir.
And so he sells his birthright for what accumulates to some trash soup. This is not even good soup.
Come on.
This is just something he threw together. And I can't think how many times we compromised our calling because we retired. I dated somebody because I was tired of waiting on who God was calling me for.
Yeah.
I took whatever job because I was tired of waiting on the one God promised me.
Yeah, I want to stop for a moment. We got to pay our sponsors. This praise break is brought to you by the 1,000 people watching who have been to hell and back again, who've been fatigued and been weary and could have fell asleep at the wheel. Some of us have wrecked our money. We wrecked our marriages. We wrecked our finances. We wrecked our future. But God didn't let us die in the wreck. Now that I'm back, I will give God the best praise that I got. But I realized if it had not been for the Lord who was on my side, I was weary in 2020. One songwriter said I was weary, wounded,
and sad.
But I found in him a resting place. And he has made me glad. Somebody ought to shout, I'm focused because I found my resting place.
Yes, sir. You to take your phone out right now and change your ex name to Fatigue. Your last job name was Fatigue.
Fatigue.
Your last bad experience name was Fatigue.
What your ex name was? Oh, Fatigue. Where you used to work at? Fatigue and Company. Where you used to shop at? Fatigue and Company. What you used to drive? Fatigue. And the reason I am no longer stressed and I am getting excited about my future is because I got my second win.
Yes, sir.
I just realized if I get focused, I'm fasting in the morning.
Yes, sir.
And I know if my fast is going to give me the strength. I got to stop. I'm getting excited. I got to stop.
Come on,
I'm getting excited. I'm getting excited. Jesus says I can't risk being fatigued.
I can't.
So I'm dismissing y'all. I'm sending y'all. Jesus was stressing to us the criticality of consecration.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
The criticality of consecration. Stephen Covey, and I always talked about his 7 habits of highly successful people. He tells us to sharpen the saw. Put this on the screen. Sharpen the saw means preserving and enhancing the greatest asset you have, which is you.
That's good.
Your shape ain't your best asset.
Yes, sir.
What you drive ain't your best asset. Your house, 5 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, bedrooms or a 2-bedroom apartment ain't your best asset.
receive that.
$1 million in the bank, 100,000 in the bank, half a
receive
mil in the
that.
bank, 20,000 in the bank, 500 in the bank. That ain't your greatest asset. Your career isn't your best asset. Your degree isn't your best asset. Well, Pastor Mike, what's my best asset? Your soul. I wish above all things,
Yes, sir.
that you would prosper,
Yes, sir.
even as your soul prospers.
Yes, sir.
The best asset that you have. I just made a decision.
Yeah.
We're not doing a Bible study. We're going to play this again Tuesday.
Wow.
This word right here is
Yeah.
too vital,
Yes,
too
sir.
critical for you to hear it one time.
Yeah.
And you're going to make a decision to
Yes,
listen
come
to
on,
it.
man. Come on.
The same way you went to grandmama's house
Yes.
and ate Thanksgiving
Yep.
and took you a to-go plate
Yes.
and reheated the next day,
Yes.
you're going to reheat this word.
Yes.
Because what I'm becoming and what I'm desiring to become is too big and too precious for me to waste it
That's
on
good.
another distraction.
That's good.
Am I talking to anybody in here?
sir. Appreciate
I
that.
have to sharpen the saw.
Yes.
The worst thing in the world is to see a dull knife. A dull knife
Yeah.
is the manifestation of a dull Christian.
Can I get some of that? The problem is you don't even know that a knife is dull until you go to use it. And too many times you look like you sharp, but you're really not. Until God gets ready to put you in purpose, only to realize I'm not as sharp as I should be.
Wow. Jesus knew I had to enhance my greatest asset.
Yes.
Which was me.
Yes, sir.
Look at your pastor, please. You
Yes, sir.
are your greatest
Yes, sir.
asset.
I
Do me a
receive that,
favor.
man.
Do me a favor. Go stand in the mirror real quick. And when you stand in the mirror, I want you to save this part of the message.
Yes.
And I want you to play it back and you're going to repeat after me.
Yes.
I want you to look in the mirror and say, I am my greatest asset.
Am my greatest asset.
I am my greatest
Yes, sir.
asset. I may not have all the money.
Yes.
I may not fit in. I may be different.
Yeah.
I may be peculiar. Folk may not understand me, but I have to guard who I am.
Yeah.
Because if I guard who I am, I will become who God wants me to be.
Yes.
I am what God says I
Yes,
am.
sir.
The Bible backed it up and affirmed you
Yes,
when he
sir.
said you are fearfully
And
and wonderfully made.
Yes, sir.
You royal priesthood.
Come on,
You
man.
peculiar
Come
people.
on, man.
You are bad
Yes, God.
somebody.
Yes.
Because what God created you to be
Yes.
is bigger than
Yes.
what they want you to
Yes,
be.
sir.
Don't stop putting on other people's armor.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Woo! Saul looked at David. Wasn't it Saul?
Yes.
Saul looked at David and said, hey, if you're going to go beat that giant,
Yeah.
get focused by putting on my
this-
stuff.
yeah.
And David tried it.
Yeah.
Then David said, I can't wear this.
I can't do it.
It don't fit me.
Yes.
I can't dress like them. It don't fit me.
Wow.
I can't flow like them. It don't fit me. I'm done trying to be what other people want me to
Come
be.
on, man.
I am what
Yes.
God says I am.
Yes, sir.
I will have what God says
Come
I
on,
can
man.
have. Because this year I'm going to remain
Focused.
focused. Jesus knew. You got your notes?
Yeah.
Jesus knew that he needed to be
teaching.
renewed and strengthened.
Yes.
Put that in your notes. He needed to be renewed and strengthened.
Yes, sir.
He was physically exhausted.
Yeah.
Some of you are just tired. You're physically exhausted. Physically exhausted.
Yeah.
Look at this now. He needed to recover
I
a
love
clear
this.
perspective of his mission.
I love this.
We ain't even got to the scripture
Yes,
yet.
sir.
This is
It's
so
so
good.
much in.
He needed to recover. Number one, he needed to be renewed.
Yeah.
That's strengthened physically. He needed to recover a clear perspective of
Yes,
his mission.
yes.
He was mentally exhausted.
I love that.
Go back one slide. There it is. Physically exhausted. All right. I want to talk about this. Renewed strength. Every person, we're going to make the devil out of a lie. I don't want you to care about who sees this or what. Be bold today with your pastor. Hearken to the word of the Lord. Every person who can honestly say, Pastor, 7, 8, 9 days into this year, 10 days into this year, I'm already physically tired. I just want you to type me right now. There's nothing wrong with it, because the greatest lie that people are believing is that the moment the clock struck 2021,
Yeah.
it became a new year for you.
Yeah.
And because it's a new year for you, all your problems magically went away. I want to say this. Tomorrow, Alabama will play Clemson.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, they will play Ohio State.
Right, right, right.
In the national championship Monday, if I'm not
Yes, sir.
mistaken.
Monday.
Watch this. Their first game was in 2020. Their championship is in 2021.
2021. Wow.
So the year changed, but the season didn't.
Jesus.
Oh.
The year
Jesus.
changed, but the season
Woo.
didn't. And what I'm trying to get you to realize right now, that for many of you, although it's 2021
the
and it's
same.
feeling like 2020, it's because it may be a different year, but the end of the same season.
Come on, man.
And you got to be able to you got to be mature enough to realize, Pastor YBJ prophesied that the year may have changed, but the season may have not,
Yeah.
because many of us are listening to cliches. We are practicing
Yeah.
cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
So good.
Saying stuff we don't believe or ignorantly don't understand.
Yes, sir. That's it.
Well,
That's
can
the
I
one
jump
right
in there?
there.
Jump in.
Because here it is. Jesus went to be renewed.
Yeah.
The problem with most of us, we go to God to be relieved. And so we're getting relieved
Jesus.
instead of being renewed. In other words, we're practicing religion instead of relationship.
Yes.
So when we go to God to pray, it's to escape everyday life instead of be renewed and strengthened to go back and conquer what we're dealing with.
Too many of us, see, Jesus, we just said it. Jesus took a break.
Yeah.
He dismissed the crowd.
Yeah.
Jesus got by himself to be renewed.
Yes, sir.
We get by ourselves or go to God to get relieved. Make that make sense in a practical way. Jesus went into his devotion time to be made better.
Yes.
We go to God to take something.
Oh.
God, take this pain.
Yes.
Jesus says, no, shake the pain.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Woo! Can I? Oh my God! Let
Come
me get some of
on.
that. See, there's a difference in wanting to be better and just wanting to feel better. Too many
Come
times
on.
we go to God so he can make us feel
Yes,
better.
God.
But we got to decide if I really want to be better. I'm deciding in 2021 because I'm focused. I don't just want to feel it. I want to be it.
I want to be it.
I don't just want to feel it. I want to be. Somebody needs to go in the comment section and just type, I want to be it.
I want to be it.
I don't just want to feel like I got some money. No, I really want to walk that out.
Yes,
I don't
sir.
just want to feel like I'm a better father. I really want to be a better father. I'm tired of just feeling good. I want to be good.
Somebody asked me the other day, one of my pastor friends called me and said, why you keep letting them preach with you? What if they get your stage? What if they get your influence? What if they split your church? What if they leave you? You can't do stuff like that. I said, stay where you at. I said, I've never seen a doctor go in an operating room by himself.
You preaching.
I have never seen a doctor
You
go in an
preaching.
operating room by himself.
You preaching.
I said, the people that I am called to experience an ICU type of 2020. And I refuse to be in pride and think I'm the only one who got a word for my people. I needed every doctor in the room because there's too many of you going through. And I came to submit to you, this is your year, not just to feel it,
Yes.
but to be it.
Yes.
I'm getting ready to have church. I need your help right here.
Come on, man.
Don't just feel better. Be better.
Yes.
Don't just feel good. Be good.
Yes.
Don't just feel favored. Be favored. Don't just feel anointed. Be anointed.
Yes.
700 people are the type, not only do I feel it, but I'm about to be it. Woo!
Come on, man. Hey, that's a praise break.
I wish that worked with my foot because my foot hurting right now. So I'm going to tell myself, foot, be better.
Yes.
I need you to understand that you don't just need to be relieved.
Yes.
You need to be renewed.
That's good.
He needed to recover a clear perspective. He was mentally tired. If you're mentally tired, just say, pray for me, pray
Yes.
for me, pray for me. He needed to be recharged with God's power.
Yes.
So much power had gone out of him.
Yeah.
That's so critical. If he's healing the sick, raising the dead, opening blinding eyes, healing people, feeding 5,000, he is exhausted.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hear me, I played football. I played 1 year at West Alabama. You played for Florida State, won an ACC championship. You played basketball.
Yes, sir.
I'd be exhausted when I get through preaching.
Yes, sir.
Exhausted.
Yes, sir.
Way worse than running gases in football.
Yeah.
I can remember running them hundreds, and I'll be like, when I get through preaching, I go home and crash.
Yes. Yeah.
Because preaching is physical
Yes.
and spiritual.
And mental.
I can feel you pulling on me.
Yes.
That's why so much of what I'm preaching ain't even in notes.
Yeah.
So much of what I'm preaching isn't even in the notes.
Yeah.
And that you're pulling it out of us.
Yes.
This was supposed to be a lesson.
Yeah.
And we done found ourselves preaching.
Yes, sir.
Because you're pulling it out of us. I need 1,000 people to just say, I'm pulling on you, Pastor.
Yes, sir.
This is why we pray.
Yes, sir.
This is why we're fasting. This is why I need you to say my name.
Yes.
Because I need every church, every member of our church,
Yes.
every citizen of Rock City, that when you get weak, pull on me.
Yes,
Because
sir.
I realize when you pull on
Yes,
me,
God.
I'm pulling on Jesus.
Yes, Lord.
I'm giving you 10 seconds to praise God where you are.
Yes,
How you ain't lost your mind
Yes,
yet?
God.
Because I'm pulling on Jesus.
Yes.
I gotta stop. I'm
Come
getting
on, man.
excited.
Yes.
I'm trying to stop. I gotta stop.
Yes,
Somebody ought to type pull on Jesus.
Pull on Jesus.
Somebody ought to type pull on Jesus.
Pull on Jesus.
When your body get tired, pull on
Pull on
Jesus.
Jesus.
When your mind get weak, pull on Jesus.
Yes, God.
And remain focused.
Yes, God. That's it, man. That's it.
He need to be renewed.
Yes.
Recover a
Yes.
clear perspective.
I love that.
And recharge with God's power.
Yes, sir.
I never even got to the message today, man. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop right there. I want to ask you one question. I can't even ask the question. I done messed the whole sermon up. They done pulled stuff out of us. We never even got to the message. Never even got to the message. Never got to the boat, man.
Wow.
We're going to have to come back to the boat.
Yes, sir.
I need to stop right now. I feel you pulling on me right now. Depression, you have no authority.
Yes, Jesus.
I declare right now healing is coming into your house.
Yes,
there's power about to flow in your home right now. I need 1,000 people to just begin to pray Jesus, Jesus. I dare somebody to put the name of Jesus.
Yes, the name above
in the
every
comments right now. That is that name that is above every name. Come on, somebody type Jesus. Somebody type Jesus. Right now, as we prepare to go on this fast tomorrow, I ask for strength, God. I ask for clarity, God. I decree and declare right now in the name of Jesus that no weapon formed against us shall be able to prosper. I decree and declare, God, you're giving us strength. You're taking us from glory to glory and from faith to faith. God, I thank you right now in the name of Jesus. I declare right now in the name of Jesus that, God, you're taking us to another level of focus. You're taking us to another level of power. You're taking us to another level of focus. You're taking us to another level of power.
Yes, Lord.
You're taking us to another level of focus. You're taking us to another level of power. You're taking us to another level of focus. You're taking us to another level of power. God, I right now decree and declare that we're putting on the full armor of God. That right now, I want you to download when you get done. Go to the app and download your focus packet, because I want you equipped. I'm not just asking you to do something. We wrote it out so you can have it right here. And in there we have warfare prayers. I'll lead you in one. Prayer is not only communion with God, it is confrontation with the enemy. Prayer is not only communion with God, it is confrontation with the enemy. These prayers are very helpful when spiritual warfare coming. Put on the full armor of God so that you may take your stand against the devil's scheme. The devil plots. The devil plots. But when the devil plots, you be focused enough to plan and declare, devil, you have no authority. Devil, I see you coming. Because I'm focused, you're not creeping up on me. I'm not about to get caught off guard. I see you because I wrestle not against flesh and blood. I declare right now in the name of Jesus, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of the enemy and evil in heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand firm, and put on the belt of truth, buckle it up around your waist with the breastplate of righteousness and peace. I decree and declare you are fully equipped to become what God is calling you to be. And pray in the spirit. Pray in the spirit. Some of you need to ask God for a heavenly language before you go on this fast, so you can begin to pray in the spirit that no weapon formed against you shall be able to prosper.
Hallelujah, Father.
Ooh, I gotta stop.
God.
We gotta remain church.
Every tongue that rises up against me.
Ooh, shall be cut down.
Yes.
We gotta remain focused.
Yes.
We'll finish next week. We gotta remain focused. I want you to fast with us.
Yes.
I want you to know that the devil is after your focus.
Yes.
That distractions will come. We're not even playing a game and saying it will.
It's gonna come.
As I'm praying, I want you to know that I'm telling the truth, and I need somebody to go in the comments and affirm what I'm about to say. While I was preaching and praying, stuff was jumping off. Put that in the comments if I'm talking to you. While I was preaching, your phone was ringing with mess. While I was preaching, somebody was trying to come over and see you. While I was preaching, kids were being loud and running through the house. While I was seeing you, while I was preaching, stuff was jumping off. Hear me when I say this. While I was preaching, you just got news that a family member just passed. I felt that in my spirit. While I was preaching, bad news began to creep up on your life, but the devil is a liar. I plead the blood of Jesus. I decree and declare that you won't lose focus, that God has not given you the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a focused mind. Father, I thank you. It's in Jesus' name I pray. My church, I want you to hear your passion when I say this, and I pray you hear my heart. The next 21 days are pivotal. We are not playing. This is not a test. This is not a game. Get focused. Don't play. Download your pamphlet right there. Pastor Darius has it right there. We printed one out so I could have it right here on our set, but it's available on the app. Download the digital version. It talks about the different types of fast. It talks about how to be successful in your fast. We have prayers written out so you can just pray. If you don't know how to pray, just read the prayer out loud and it still has power. It's the principle. It's not just you being able to make it up. Don't do that. I want you to understand that God is calling you to another level of focus. I love you. I'm praying for you. I felt God today. What about you guys,
sir.
Dre?
Absolutely.
I felt God today,
Yes, sir.
man.
Absolutely.
I'm overwhelmed.
Beyond a shadow of a doubt.
By his presence. Oh my God. I am overwhelmed. Now
Humbled
I
by
see
his
why we said during Unscripted, take away the lights, remove the noise. I just want to be with you.
Yes.
Listen, I know we didn't plan this, but Dre, if you don't mind, I want to play that worship set when I get done.
Yes.
And while I'm playing that worship set, I want you to take the time I'm playing that to focus your mind. Just let it play in the background. Just close your eyes for a minute and catch your breath. Breathe. Breathe. Take a deep breath right now with me. I'm here with you because somebody's having an anxiety attack. Somebody's feeling overwhelmed. Let's do it together.
Hallelujah.
Just breathe, 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 breathe. Calm down. It's not over. God sees you. And to the person who feels like your prayers are going unanswered, God heard you. He heard you. He's working on your behalf. Why? Before you even knew you had a problem, he had already came up with the answer, the solution. This is why we sung that beautiful song that we wrote on the spot.
Yeah.
We wrote it on the spot. Take away the lights, remove the noise. I just want to be with you.
Yeah.
I just want to be with you. Whatever you're giving is between you and God. When I give, that's me remaining focused. When I pray, that's me remaining focused.
Yes.
And now it's time to watch God work.
Yes.
I love you, Rock City.